We will now convene our Wattsburg Area School District Finance Committee meeting, and I will turn the floor over to Dr. Andrew Pushchak, Chair of our Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to call the Finance Committee meeting to order. And just to remind the audience, committee meetings are open to the public. There is a presentation followed by board dialogue, and then should anyone from the audience wish to ask questions, if time permits at the end, you're certainly welcome to. So, committee meeting called to order. Thank you, Mr. President, and I will turn it over to Mrs. Bendig and Dr. Berlin.
Thank you, Dr. Pushchak. So for this evening, we're going to review the 25-26 budget preparation. So every year I start out for the budget, kind of doing a projection, start out with the 24-25 budget, which is 0. Increase our real estate taxes due to an assessment increase. So our assessments, total assessed value increase will bring us an additional $2,600. And then increasing the basic ed funding, Social Security subsidy, special ed funding, retirement subsidy, and Ready to Learn grants that we know of based on the governor's budget. That's an increase of $612,000. And after I've gone through the entire budget and adjusted expenditures, which we'll get into more detail in a little bit, the increase to expenditures is about $1.7 million. So our preliminary budget deficit for 25-26 is about $1.1 million. So we can assume that we're going to maintain all of our programming, and that our basic ed subsidy and special ed subsidy have been adjusted to reflect the projected 25-26 amount. And I've also accounted for the change to the Ready to Learn educational block grant with the adequacy supplement that is not guaranteed, but I put that amount that they say we're going to get into the budget. A maximum Act 1 index, just as a reminder, could be added at 5.4%. Which will generate $685,000. So the expenditure increases, those about $937,000 are salary increases, and that reflects our anticipated teacher retirements. It adds 3 positions: the school security guard, school psychologist, an additional school psychologist, an additional speech therapist. It also includes the proposed WEA increases. That's about approximately $611,000. Our medical insurance rates are projected to rise by 13.2% for this coming year. I don't have an exact amount for that, but I have that built into the budget as well. PSERS, the new employer rate for this year, is 34%. It only went up 0.1% from last year, but the increase with our salary increases and the added positions is about $350,000. You just voted on the increase to the transportation contract. It'll be about $176,000 increase. We're continuing to spend $250 in curriculum material each year, continuing to spend about $450,000 in technology, which is the laptop rotation lease and any kind of other technology needs that we have. The maintenance incentive initiatives, we do about $250,000 in a maintenance plan, repointing and waterproofing of the buildings, and HVAC maintenance agreements, and our annual PM inspections on generators, district vehicles, pest control, fire, and bleachers. There's also a big chunk in budgetary reserve, about $1.8 million. $1.5 million is set aside for charter school tuition, which is an increase of about $215,000 from this year, projected for next year, and then $300,000 in budgetary reserve or an operating contingency. Just a few notes: the maximum allowable Act 1 index real estate tax increase is about an additional $119 on a tax bill for a home assessed at $100,000, and that would generate $685,000 in revenue. And we will get a new updated district taxable assessment on May 1st, along with the homestead farmstead information, when they tell us how many properties are homestead farmstead, and then we have to reallocate the tax revenue that we get for that. So where is it by category? We can look at the increase to revenue and where we're spending money. So the increase in the total tax assessment is $2,600. I put in an Act 1 index of 5.4% so that I could balance the budget. Increased collection rate. We've always underestimated our collection rate, so I did bump up the collection rate for real estate taxes this year, just a smidge, which gave us another $91,000. We've had some increase to PERTA and payments in lieu of taxes that we haven't realized or I haven't built into the budget in the past, so I upped those to last year's amounts. I did include the increase to the interest income for our investments. As long as the interest rates hold out, we can conservatively expect an additional $315,000 in revenue from that this coming year. A few dollars for student fees, rental income, and miscellaneous revenue. Total net change to the local, about $1.1 million. And again, that does include the $685,000 for an Act 1 increase. Then the basic ed funding and Social Security that I mentioned. We also have a decrease in transportation subsidy of about $210,000. This is due to the formula that they come up with, and if we're running less buses, traveling less miles with less kids, we get less money. So just kind of factoring some of that in, knowing that that's not going to cover, it never has covered our entire transportation, but it had been about half. It's not half anymore. And then increase to retirement and ready to learn is about $612,000. So total revenue increase, $1.7 million. And then on the right-hand side is the expenses by category. You can see at the top the increases to the salaries and benefits is about $1.3 million. We've carved out some instructional expenses, and the tech school is less this year. Our technology expenses got moved from technology into a GASB tech lease, so those expenditures show up down below in the tech lease. And then an increase to maintenance expenses, just estimating if we needed to call a plumber or an electrician or have any kind of professional service come in for anything that we need in the building. That is built in. The increase to transportation is there, and the increase to budgetary reserve. So it all adds up to $1.7 million, which brings us to the total proposed budget of $32,111.17. And if you wanted to slice the pie a different way, I also have the budget snapshot that is, it shows by object code. So it doesn't group it by category. Is it special ed? Is it instructional? Is it maintenance? Is it school safety and security? This is simply, here's all the salaries, here's all the benefits, and then purchased services, which is much in the way that the budget versus actual report is presented to you each month. So this kind of helps collect all of those functions together. And then the building services, cleaning, snow removal, and then transportation, insurance, advertising, tuition that we pay to other school buildings, and then supplies, technology supplies, gas, energy, books, those all are in the same category. And then any kind of equipment, dues and fees, and the very last section is our debt service. So you can see how that has changed collectively from 2024, or I'm sorry, 24-25 to 25-26 in the very right-hand column. So increase of $935,000 to salaries, $421,000 to benefits, a decrease to professional services of $38,000, $2,000 more in purchased property services, $134,000 in purchased other services, $7,800 more in supplies and technology, and then $4,100 in equipment, $220,000 in budgetary reserve, which was mostly to charter school tuition, and then $36,000 in our other, our debt service actually went down, but that $86,000 for the tech lease principal and interest that's in there, that's a new GASB requirement, so that got moved from a different place, so it's actually gone up a little bit to cover the savings from the debt service and then the increase to the tech lease. So that is really all I had. If anybody had any questions or wanted to have some discussion about it.
Mr. President? Mrs. Bendig, just a couple of questions. The projected increase in taxes due to assessment increase, so just seemed at 2,600 and change. It sounds very low, but just that's me looking at the real estate transactions, and houses are selling for 2 to 3 times assessed value because we've not had an assessment for so long. So is it just that there's so few homes that are selling lately, or where does that number, your projection, come from?
So this taxable, the total tax assessed value that I get is from November. It's issued in the assessment office in November and then again on May 1st. So if there were any changes between November and May, I'll get that number on the 1st of May. This is,
That's not a projection. This is accurate right now
it is accurate with the numbers that I have right now.
from November.
Mhm.
Okay. In terms of the 3 new positions, I understand, that we're switching from a county security officer versus our own hired security guard and school psychologist, speech therapist. Are all 3 positions, I can't remember, are all 3 required, where we need to have, not that we need to have all 3, but we're required by mandate to have all 3 of those positions?
So the school security guard was we did have a school resource officer through the sheriff's office, but we are the last people to have a school resource officer through the sheriff's department, and he wants to retire from the sheriff's department, so we were bringing him on as a school security guard. So that was to keep the same amount of security on campus, and there is some savings because we're not paying for the portion of his salary to the sheriff's office, but we also have a salary and then benefits on top of that too. So it's not quite a wash because we were only paying 75% of his wages through the sheriff's office.
And am I wrong? I thought there was something that required us to have, wasn't there some changes to the laws that said we have to have security
Yeah, so,
at some level?
yeah, that particular statute went into effect this year, phased in. School districts are to have at least one armed security person at their facility. Now, it's curious, the way it's written, you probably could get away with one security guard per school district or one SRO or school police officer. This year, districts that didn't have that could submit a waiver, but it's mandatory starting next year. So we'll have a little more security than we're required, but it has been something that we've essentially been funding to this point and would recommend that we continue that.
And the other 2 positions new?
So we currently have a school psychologist, but the caseload is very overwhelming. Our caseload is growing. There's a lot of potential for burnout in that position, so want to have another one on staff to make sure that they can, so that they can share the load, and the same with the speech therapist. Yeah, third psychologist in 2 years, so.
Yeah, and the school psychologist, it's, the numbers of referrals for evaluations that we're getting have just really climbed steadily over the past 5 years. So I think he's up to about 100 so far, but by the end of the year, it's going to be 160, 170. So it's almost like one for every day that we have school. And that's just not physically possible to keep that up and do the job that we want to do with that particular task.
And
the speech therapist, I'm sorry, the speech therapist, there are caseload numbers that we have to meet, like you can't exceed a certain amount, so we have been subcontracting with the IU to pick up that load, but now it's getting to the point where they're essentially full-time here, and we can do it cost-wise going forward with this trend. We can do it more cost-effectively because the IU contracted teacher rate and other fees put them above what we could do it for.
So you kind of answered my second question. Outsourcing some of these services isn't better, either service-wise or financially. It's better to have it in-house and have some control.
Yeah, yes, we've just reached that point with the speech therapist, and the school security guard it kind of is what it is. It's getting very difficult to find retired police officers or people that have the municipal security clearances that have been through like city police type training courses, that 6-month course. It's getting difficult to find those individuals. So Mr. Bowers, Deputy Bowers, is he checks all those boxes. So and he does a good job. So are they new positions? Essentially, not really. The school psychologist would be, of the three, another additional person here. Okay, Mrs. Bendig, did you have another?
I was just going to mention the speech therapist. We have reached capacity through the IU, and we had to reach out and find someone else. We actually contracted through the Barber National Institute to receive additional speech therapy services to meet that caseload this year. So moving forward, we're definitely going to need to have one, which could be a trade-off in not having a contracted service in the future.
So similar to our school security guard, if I'm understanding what you're saying there, we have costs for these services this year. We're just using the IU or Barber Institute or other, so the new costs are not 100% new in that we are already paying for it in another way.
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, did you say that we have one speech therapist on staff, or we have one that's contracted through the IU that's working full capacity?
We have one employee and we
okay.
contract through the IU.
All right, and then my other question is, you just said the security guard, which I'm 100% for. I think it's awesome. But when we were discussing originally, we weren't going to have to pay benefits for him because he was going to draw from his retirement benefits, but we are doing that now?
Well, when I say benefits, I mean employee benefits like Social Security and retirement, not necessarily a full-fledged insurance package.
On the charter school tuition, how many students are being serviced within that sum? Do we have that number?
It's 62.
And how many students are we servicing inside the district right now in total?
On our cyber?
Oh, no, in our buildings.
1,290?
Yeah, it's almost
Ish.
1,300. It was like 1,296 the other day.
Are you doing the math? Okay.
Yeah, those, I may have mentioned those costs for the private cyber seem a little disproportionate to what they provide.
Yes. I think that's very important to note in these forums, that this is a continuing challenge on the cost per student basis.
So someone might, well, I have a lot of talking points on this, but the tech school costs 65 students comparably. That's probably around 400,000 or a little less, depending on the year. And those are students that go on a real bus and interact with other real kids in a real building, with real teachers, with real equipment, and learn how to do real things. So contrast that with 1.5 million for the same amount of students for laptop computer at home. And that has been the hue and cry across the state when it comes to the cyber charter funding formula method. It's just not commensurate, and this has nothing to do with whether cyber school is effective or not, or it's a good option for students or not. It does not line up with what it costs to deliver that service in any way, shape, or form. And that's really the constraints that brick and mortar school districts are under: transportation, food service, campuses, supplies, technology, infrastructure, lots of infrastructure, not an internet connection and 5,000 laptops if I'm PA Cyber Charter. We're talking about a
Budgetary reserve.
building, servers, and all these things that are labor intensive to keep operating
Because if I budget for it, I can't deduct it.
appropriately. So what's the answer? I don't know. I mean, once again,
I'll have to pay
on the table this year,
on tuition.
there's talk with a bill to cap the tuition at 8,000 per student, as opposed to the formula now, which depending how a district budgets and the size of their budget, some of the tuition rates per student, it differs per district, per student, per cyber. They can be pretty exorbitant. Ours are probably, if I remember, 26 or 7,000 for a special ed student. I don't know if you remember that number off the top of your head.
Cyber tuition?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and then,
Just under 27, 21, or
yeah, and then the regular ed tuition is less than that. But, I mean, 8,000 would be a step in the right direction, but still, it seems to be more than $100 of high-speed internet a month and a $1,000 computer from Best Buy and a platform that a company didn't even develop, that was developed by a large conglomerate that sells it again and again and again to cyber charter schools and online schools across the country. Make it one time, sell it.
For 24, 25, our non-special education student tuition, cyber tuition is $15,463. And for special ed students, for brick and mortar charter schools, is $28,685, and for cyber charter schools, it's $24,843 per student.
Did you say how much it was was that our in-house cyber school, 21,000?
No, this is all charter schools.
So
So
I
these
did,
would be students that live in our district, and they have decided to go to a private cyber charter, and There's, I think, 14 or 16 of those now in the state. So they service, big swaths of Pennsylvania. And then they send us a tuition bill. So,
Yeah.
Mrs. Burlingham, you had a question?
No question, and like the money part, obviously, I don't even know what to say about that, but like, there is a huge correlation between cyber schools and mental health in school. And so that is something that I feel like, I think as a district, the fact that we are trying to like get another psychologist on and try to do better with that, I think is, I don't know if it's going to answer all the questions, but the fact is, it's like the mental health dynamic in the school districts is so massive right now, especially since COVID. Like, and even within my own personal family, we are just watching it be you're like kind of hitting a wall over and over and over. Kids are so emotionally disengaged for some reason, and their emotions are all over the place. And you guys know I'm a therapist. I'm literally actually about to transition to a therapist position within LECON because the numbers of referrals are so astronomical with youth, middle-aged adolescents. But we are seeing that there's a huge correlation between mental health or lack of mental health services in school districts and people being on online cyber school. So I'm glad that we are trying to figure out better ways to like alleviate some of those things, because that is a huge factor and plays a big role in our kids feeling safe enough to be here. And I'm not just talking physical safety, but emotional and psychological safety in a school. So doesn't help anything, but I'm just throwing it out there from the professional standpoint of what we're seeing as mental health.
Thank you for your
professionals.
comments,
Those are
Mrs.
great
Burlingham.
observations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Brummagen?
Mr. President, if I can add to that, and I'll agree with it, I only know a couple. Can't speak to the entire number of it, but students that are either enrolled in online, and I even know past board members that have taken kids and left the district. It comes back to they thought that was a better decision for the health of their pupil. Somebody who's been in education, I know there's the other side of it too, where people just don't show up to school or whatever and they get pushed the other way. But I know a handful that came to the conclusion that they didn't get their questions answered or they didn't get their problems resolved, and they felt the better move was to pull their pupil out. So, that we have some skin in the game to make sure that we're trying to keep our students inside our walls too at a cheaper cost. And I think it goes back to the mental well-being.
Thank you, Mr. Brummagen.
Yep, well said.
Any other questions, comments, questions for Mrs. Bendig? We good, Mr. Chair?
I would just like to thank the business office and the superintendent's office for the continued work on this budget to continue to provide the best possible education for all of our students in light of actually several costs that are beyond our control. I think we're doing a good job with many of the costs that are in our control by still providing good curriculum, programming, technology, facilities, human resources. So thank you to the administration.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Before we close the meeting, I would be remiss if I didn't ask the question. Where or how has there been any sort of investigation on just bottom line, what can we save? What is there anything that we can do to try, and maybe you've already wrung this all out, but I guess, I see the report, very well done, understand all the increases. Is there anything that we need to look at to say, what do we need to, I'll use the word, cut? And I don't know that answer right now, but I guess I'm asking if there's been any sort of investigation or thought along those processes, because every year it goes up, it goes up, it goes up. And we all talk about maintaining facilities, we talk about maintaining programs, we maintain all those things, but it just seems like it never ends. And I know we're waiting for the state, and we're waiting for the relief of the state, which, seems like a pipe dream every year, that it never comes. And I'm just asking out loud, maybe a question that people are thinking in their heads. So, and I don't know, it's going to be very difficult. I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot. I'm just trying to understand what the thought process is and as we build this budget and as we go forward. So, thank you.
So to partially answer your question, in the budget process, I go down through every single line item and look at what did we spend collectively last year versus what we budgeted in this current year, and did we spend more money than what we budgeted this year? And if that's the case, well, why? Why did we spend more money? Is that a one-time expenditure, or is that an ongoing cost that can't be avoided because we have special ed students that require those services? Or, can we cut? So if you look at all of the decreases in the categories that I went through by department, there were a lot of cuts. I cut as much as I thought was comfortable, and at the end of the year, last year, the margin that went to unassigned fund balance was less than 1% of the budget. So I don't know of many other companies that can run on a less than 1% margin on a $32 million budget. If you want to cut more, we're going to have to talk about cutting programs or people. So sometimes you can't have a program if you don't have people to run it. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, my overall assessment, when I look at this, it looks like the overall expenditure increase is about 6% based upon the previous year's budget. So in general, I remember, it seems like last year we were around 3.5 from what I recall, our expenditure increase. So, it's not outrageous. It's one of those questions that, we all hear out in the community that I'm just trying to understand. To that point, to be within a 1%, wiggle room when it's all said and done, very well balanced with the pluses and the minuses of the overs and the unders. And to your point, it becomes a point where then you look at the big ticket items, and unfortunately the big ticket items, 65% of our budget is in salaries and benefits. When I look at all of those things.
I also, sorry, didn't mean to
No, that's
interrupt,
fine.
but the salaries,
Have to go up.
over half of the increase to salaries is the proposed amount to try and get our teachers within the Erie County range.
Sure.
So that we can recruit and retain people. I mean, we have hired 34 teachers in the last 3 years.
Mhm.
And teachers will leave to go somewhere else, and we're not getting longevity for our students, we're not getting consistency, we're not getting, that salary needs to be where people are happy to stay here and serve our students, which we've had this conversation for the last 2 years about how our teachers are paid the least amount in Erie County, and we think that we've come up with a good plan to stop the bleeding, but that is going to have an impact on the budget.
All understandable.
Yeah,
These are all facts. I mean, there's no doubt.
Yeah,
I'm not disagreeing with the facts. I'm not disagreeing with that. I also look at the facts that every year we jump, every year. And it just never seems to end. And the answer is it's either more revenue or it's less expenditure. And if it's more revenue, it automatically comes to a tax increase. It just does. And so I don't know if there's no simple answer. I'm not saying that there is a simple answer. I'm just trying to understand the process, and and I appreciate that. And I don't disagree with the factors that are at play. The cost of the resources that we needs to go up so that those resources are maintained. And therefore, that then translates to, okay, where do you get it from? And it comes down to the tax increases, so.
Yeah, and like it or not, that's
Right.
our funding structure.
Right.
There are anomalies, like we've talked about this evening, just a couple of them. Cyber is one of them. I mean, there's some
Absolutely.
things that are taking a big chunk out of the budget disproportionately, in my opinion, for what they deliver to those folks that take that option. But Mrs. Bendig, I think, summarized it well. It's people and programs. If you look at I think it's the first page or second page of that snapshot, increases in salaries and benefits, you're looking at 1.2, 1.3 million right there. And I can tell you, and many, well, not all of us, but some of us have been through the adjustments in salaries for some of the groups over the past few years. We've paid the lowest of everybody everywhere in Erie County. So I think you can look at taxpayers and say, we've been as frugal and judicious as possible to give you the quality schools we have at the price that you pay. Now, in a sparsely populated area like this, it's going to cost you more if you want that kind of quality. You can't have quality without, I mean, you can play with elements of it, right?
Absolutely.
You can pull it fast, you can pull it easy, you can pull it cheap, but at the end of the day, you can't have it fast, easy, and cheap. It's going to
Right, and that's the balance that we have to
yeah, and I
decide
think
upon.
that's kind of what we're up against, because the next steps would be looking at people, and it would be all parts of our operation.
Right.
But if we started to do that, I think you'd find that we're not overly staffed in areas. Although you could increase elementary class size, you could reduce high-level electives at the high school, you could increase middle school class size. Those are the things that probably would get you the most recurrent savings. And I say that likely, because you take 10 teachers out, it's going to reduce the cost by $500,000 1 year. And then next year, that's going to be right back there as things start to climb. And then you have the unanticipated.
Yeah. No, don't take my comments as a accusation by any means.
Oh, no.
It's a understanding the process and, being, transparent on how it is all arrived at. Yes, and plus, and again, like I said last year, I believe, when I bottom line this and it looks like, again, 6% as an overall increase that's what we've all experienced. So, I mean, that's not an outrageous or an outlier, on this budget. So that very well is sound trite, but a good job
Yeah.
to keep it to that level with everything else that is going on. Again, it's unfortunate that our, I don't want to cry the blues, but our circumstances are what they are, given our resources that are available to us and then the resources that we need to provide as we all want to, a very highly qualified education to the students. So that's where I was coming from.
Yep, excellent observations, very well taken, and I hope just my kind of perspective on it is also beneficial, because that's all it is a perspective.
Right. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morvan. Mr. Bremmerton?
Mr. President, I'll try not to go off on a tangent. I have a lot that I want to say in this regard. Couple things. In regard to teacher retention. And a couple of things I'm going to say in the next few minutes are repeats. I believe money comes into play sometimes in somebody's decision. As a prior educator, family members that are educators, Again, in my realm, it's not the number one reason why somebody chooses to work in School District A or School District B. The saying that I have is people join organizations and people leave people. So we have to make sure we're mentoring and we're leading our buildings properly so that people want to stay underneath the leadership they're in. And if we give them a happy home, they're less likely to chase a dollar for ungreener pastures. So I'll start with that one there. I don't think there is anything to cut. I think we're understaffed. I think when I watch the school district performance reports and the most recent one we had with this building here, we have a lot of kids that need help. Our title services, we're only helping 15 kids when about half the grade level need more. So I think we need more services. The problem is, and Mr. Morvay's comment, it's unfortunate, that we're in the circumstance we're in. Oftentimes, boards don't think proactively. We think reactively. And I've been here now for I forget how long. I've made comments a few times about being proactive, especially in this area, and we've done nothing. I don't know why a board would even suggest cuts to staff and cuts to curriculum without thinking proactively at how we can solve the problem. The problem is not our millage rate. The problem is not that we have too much services. The problem is that we're a rural community with very few homes. We need to increase our taxable assessed value. And the only way you're going to do that is to change your thinking and to start thinking proactively at how we incentivize increased development in our communities. Clean and green farm fields pay you nothing in tax. Developers cannot develop a clean and green farm field without buying out 10 years of back regular taxes. They're not going to do it without some type of incentive to offset the financial decision. They're going to build in Waterford at almost half the millage rate. They're going to build in Harbor Creek, and they're just going to keep going right around us. We have to incentivize proactively attempting to address this problem. And so for the third time, I'll ask this board if we will investigate LRTA tax initiatives. I believe other school districts in Erie County are doing it, and I find it interesting that I don't think that we're not even willing to investigate if it's an opportunity for us or not. It might not be. But before we talk about cuts to something, we should at least be investigating proactively other solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brumbachen. Aware of any districts that are involved? Any other questions from the floor?
Yeah, so district-wise, I believe Harbor Creek, that's one I know of off the top of my head.
Corey and Union City both have LRTA. Corey and Union City both have LRTA in their cities, so not the entire
the
district
towns?
footprint, just in the towns, right? The boroughs.
I know, Mr. Brumbachen, you brought this up before, and I've done some preliminary investigation. We really have to have, it's not something we can initiate, it's something we can support. And it really has to come from the local municipalities that are going to make those decisions on how areas are zoned and what areas to be developed. Because it involves them to a great extent in where things go. So I don't know that this board would be unwilling to get on to that type of situation and be a part of that. But that we need their help.
Yeah, and I thank you for that and for doing some research. as I've suggested before, we have 5 municipalities, and I don't believe those 5 municipalities on their own are going to come to this conclusion. If we can be the leader and we can show them what we're dealing with and the deficits that we're dealing with, I know their number one complaint from their taxpayers, they get it all the time, is taxes, and they always point to us. So you have 2 fingers pointing back. Somebody has to be the catalyst to change. If we could try and attempt, I think that is all we can do.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Brevingen. Anything else for the good of the order for the Finance Committee meeting?
Hearing none, Mr. President, I think our Finance Committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you.